today, we want to give you some skills and attributes that will help you prepare your pitch to get it straight in your mind and to explain your special story. We have a guy with us who's an expert in the art of storytelling, and he's going to show you all how to craft and tell a compelling story. So please, a huge welcome for Mr. Parkhow.
Thank you. I mean, it is a real honor and a privilege to be here today, and I want to start by doing something that I've always wanted to do, but I can't do from behind the screen, and I want to ask you, are you ready to rally? Yes, are you ready to rally? We started that cry, I think, 17 years ago, and we've had it ever since. But it's been a long journey for me from when I first met Forever to where I am today, so I want to really quickly share with you that journey, and all of you, or a number of you, have been a part of it. As you see behind me, what makes a great story also makes a great life. And I think you can relate to that because you're sitting here today, you've come from around the world to gather as a Forever family and have a great time, and you have achieved amazing things to be here. So would you agree that you are already living a great story? Yes? Yes? Well, today, we're going to show you how, and you already do this innately, how you can tell your story even better, faster, more impactfully, and invite people along to your story for the next chapters, to get them involved in the business, to get them involved with the product. So, of course, now we're going to ask you, what's your story? And today I see that you've got some books. Hold up your books right here. You're probably wondering, what am I going to do with these, right? Well, in a little while, you are going to hear from some amazing distributors that are going to tell you their stories. And while we do that, we're going to have a working session where we're going to have you open up the books and start taking notes so that right now, sitting in this room, you are going to start crafting your compelling story. It's already there. It's how you put it together, and it's how you share it with the rest of the world that makes the biggest difference. We're going to take you through the elements of story. And it seems so simple. Every great story has 3 acts. And that comes down to having a beginning, a middle, and an end. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, let's equate this to making a cup of coffee. It's a great analogy for storytelling. When you make a great cup of coffee, you start with the coffee beans, the elements of your story. And you imagine the different kinds of blends that you can have. You can have that morning blend, the Sumatra blend, whatever kind of story it is you want to enjoy as you make the coffee and that coffee afterwards. That's Act 1. Act 2, what do? You take your hero and you put them through things really tough. In this case, you grind up and you pulverize those beans. And you pour scalding hot water over them, and you boil the heck out of them. And they seep through, and it takes you to Act 3, which is that delicious cup of coffee. So you can see how the character arc works here. You begin with the elements of story. You get a hero that your audience can relate to. You put that hero through hell as they are trying to achieve something great in their lives. Right when you think they have their hands on success, you make it even more difficult. Can you all relate to that? Have you all been there and you thought you had everything figured out about this business, only to have your business maybe get a little quiet or things start falling apart and you have to dig even deeper to make a difference in your lives? That's what we talk about in story. So let's talk about, we've got the 3 parts, Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, correct? In each act, we have 3 scenes. This is the last number I'm going to have you think about. 9 beats of storytelling, the 3 scenes. So let's start with Act 1, and let's start with the hero. When you're telling a story, you want to have a hero that people can relate to. A lot of cases, that's ourselves. It's the story that you've been through. In other cases, it may be a hero, might be a son or daughter that's been through something tough that allows you to tell a story that resonates to your audience. It could be, in this case, it could be a product can also be a hero as you take your audience through it. What you want is a hero, and often a reluctant hero. Someone who necessarily isn't out to change the world, but gets thrust into it, gets propelled into motion to make a difference. And so they have to dig deep, find the strength, and do it. Act 2, Scene 1, is what's at stake, or the goals. We all have goals. We're not going to be setting out on a mission without a clear end in sight, correct? So you want to be able to describe very specifically what your hero wants. what their goal is and what that outcome is. And whatever that outcome is to be, it's got to be an outcome that people care about, because you're going to put this hero, again, through tough times to get there. Scene 3, Act 1, is what we call an inciting incident. That's a big word for saying, what happens to you that turns your world upside down? What decision have you made that the very next moment you think, oh no, I shouldn't have done that, but you propelled your life into motion and now you had to deal with it and it turned out wonderfully? Or maybe you lost a job unexpectedly, or you are suffering from poor health, or a loved one has poor health, and you know you have to jump into action. This is called the inciting incident, and it's very critical to every story at this point to let your audience know what it was that turned your hero's life upside down. All right, let's move on to Act 2. Act 2 begins with obstacles and what we call antagonists. So you've heard heroes are the protagonists, the people you're rooting for throughout stories, but the antagonists, or the obstacles, are everything that gets put in their way. Earlier you saw Veronica. She joined Forever. She had a Carl, a husband, that didn't think that that was such a good idea. If you were here last year, remember her mother called in and was asking what was she thinking. Plus she met a lot of crazy people in the business before she really found Forever. These are all obstacles set in our way and intentionally set in your hero's path to thwart them, to get them to stop. But as they overcome these obstacles, that's where the juice is, that's where the magic is in storytelling. But they often can't do it alone. So the next scene is you introduce the sidekick, or the love story in this. Now, this could be anybody. In addition to Forever, which is quite often the sidekick in the stories I hear, because the company is there and the product is there to help you and your future and help your customers. But these sidekicks could be a very supportive spouse. It could be an upline manager. It could be someone from the home office. It could be just a friend that keeps rooting you on. Every great hero has a sidekick. Batman had Robin. Who do you have in your life as you're telling the story that you bring into it? Last part of Act 2 is all is lost. Now, remember when I said earlier, right when it feels like you have it made and life is going great and you think you've achieved your goal? Maybe it's a hollow goal. Maybe you realize that you set the bar too low and you could achieve so much more. Something happens. In Veronica's case, she got to manager, she relaxed, and she started seeing her downline fall apart. In my case earlier, everything was going great, Forever Vision was going great, and then outside influences conspired against us. Stock market crash, .com crash, personal tragedy in our family. Those are things that we all have happen to us, but they're important to story, and to be specific about it when you tell these, because it's what really reveals the deep moral compass. It reveals what is inside of your hero, inside of you, that helps you persevere, overcome, and achieve something greater than you even possibly imagined. Now we go on to Act 3. Act 3, after you've taken your hero and you've put him like coffee grounds through hell, you show the great success. So how many of you think back when you thought you had success right there, only to see it fall away, you reignited yourself, you recommitted, and then you had success beyond your wildest dreams? Have you had that happen to you? Yes? I'm sure it's touched you in some way or another. Our last 2 acts now come out of your story, and it's when you start bringing your audience into the story. And we call this anchoring your audience, or getting them to buy into your pitch.